$34 trillion. That's the total amount of debt accumulated by the Muppets in Washington in the nation's history. There is one simple solution to solve the debt crisis, but before I explain that to you, you need to understand the scale, the reasons, and how the debt crisis is actually affecting you. To put this into perspective, I mean, 35 trillion seems like an insane number. One of my ex-investment banking buddies was telling me about a car called the Rolls-Royce Boattail, and it's the world's most expensive supercar that's street legal. It costs $28 million. So how many could we buy of those with a nation's debt? Well, with $1 billion, you could buy 36 of them. Bargain, right? With $1 trillion, you could buy 35,714 beautiful, shiny, flash cars. And if you were to multiply that by 34, you'd get over 1.2 million boat tail Rolls-Royces in total. You might think that owning 1.2 million supercars was a little bit excessive. Well, you could also buy 87 million times the average American home. Let that sink in. There are only 140 million homes out there. Insane, isn't it? So the US, by all measures, is insanely indebted. The fourth most indebted nation if you compare it to the size of its economy, behind Japan, Greece, and Italy. Not exactly the poster children of sort of fiscal responsibility. But the US is number one, and one thing, it has the most debt in dollar terms of any country in the world. Yay, the US is number one. So why is the US in so much debt? Well, the federal government basically borrows money when it spends more than it receives in tax revenue. And that's a fairly simple concept. So what do? Well, when they need more money, they sell debt. It's also called as treasury bills. Now, why would anybody buy US government debt? Well, the government pays you a nice amount of interest for it every year, and investors like buying US government debt because it's deemed very safe. What has made this much worse is, one, the financial crisis. So if you look at 2008, the insane market crash, what did the government do? Well, they bailed out all of the big banks for their idiotic risk-taking, and my banker friends really liked it. Then we just had the COVID pandemic. Well, everybody pretty much got a stimulus check, whether they should have gotten one or not, everybody got one. And that included the 50 charming people who now are pharma billionaires. I don't have any pharma friends. I draw the line somewhere. Not at bankers, but at pharma people. How about wars? Wars have led to historic spikes in debt levels. If you look at World War II, that was funded by debt and by tax. The Korean War was paid for almost entirely through higher taxes. Vietnam War was a mix of higher taxes and inflation. The Cold War period up till 1990 was paid for by lots of debt and taxes. And ever since 1990, the US has been in a sort of perma-war, little wars all over the place, and that's been entirely funded by debt. So is this all bad? Well, it's not bad if you are in the top 1% because they pay very little taxes and they typically own the companies, or they might be your landlord. So when you receive stimulus money from the US government, essentially it all funnels back to them. So they are happy. Now, if you thought the national debt right now was bad, well, fast forward 10 years and it's going to be $54 trillion, according to the Muppets at the Congressional Budget Office. Why? Aging population, rising healthcare costs, and higher interest rates, and a very strong desire by those in power to buy your vote. And the consequences you might think are, well, don't really care. Well, it does impact you in two ways directly. One, it pushes interest rates, and therefore your mortgages are more expensive, and therefore you are poorer and you have to work longer and harder to pay off that mortgage. You want help with how to set up an extra income stream through trading just one stock in 4 hours per week, the way I do it, and learn my 3 simple rules. Then just come and join my free Facebook group, get access to my free trading mini course. The link is in the description. I thought that was rather nicely weaved into the video, didn't you? But seriously, that's our mission, I'll tell you a little bit more of that in a moment. What about the solution? The government at the moment is just kicking the can down the road each year. No politician really wants to be the one that's going to raise your taxes and cut spend. So ultimately, the debt crisis is actually a massive crisis for democracy, because how can a democratically elected government do something unpopular? Who's going to vote for Mr. I'm going to raise your taxes and cut your services? Nobody, right? Which is why it isn't happening. So let me propose to you a very simple solution I'd like you to take to your US congressman and see what they say. And please film it and send me the video. I propose we give members of Congress and the Senate a credit score. Everybody starts with a perfect 1,000 points. And for every 1 billion in government debt that year, they lose 1 point. Every time they vote for an unfunded expense hidden in one of the bills, they lose 10 points. And when they have less than 500 credit points less, which means their credit score is now rubbish, they are no longer allowed to vote on any bills that increase national debt. You do that, the whole thing is solved in probably about 6 months, when pretty much the entire Congress has 500 points, and you can no longer pass legislation that costs the nation money. Good idea? Bad idea? Let me know down below in the comments. And on a more serious note, focus on yourself. Focus on getting your own personal finances in order. Just because the Muppets in Washington are incredibly irresponsible doesn't mean you should be. The fastest solution to that, honestly, is to build an extra income stream. So if you have a little bit of capital, you want to manage your money better, and you want to learn from a bunch of old investment bankers who have a mission to make 1 million of you financially free, come and join our free Facebook group. Links down below. Go through the free mini courses, ask us some questions, and let's get you on the road to financial freedom. If you enjoyed this video and you want to enjoy some more of these videos, then hit the subscribe button, maybe even like or share the video if you're feeling in a generous mood. And I thank you very much for watching. See you on the next one.